G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Rex Afrasiabi from MA Legal based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Rex.
Thank you for having me. And well done on pronunciation. Not many people can pronounce my name.
Oh, geez. I'm always very nervous getting people's names right. It's the hardest thing about doing these podcasts. Let's start with how we know each other. So we've been starting to reach out to guests through LinkedIn and came across your profile. Thought you'd be an excellent guest to have on. You've had multiple businesses. And so I'm really looking forward to the chat today.
Oh, thank you for reaching out. I'm looking forward to it myself.
Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
How it makes money. We help people. So I'm a lawyer, so please don't judge me on that. But I'm a lawyer predominantly. And before becoming a lawyer, I suppose, I was working at various larger firms. The last firm I was working for as an employee or a senior associate was based in South Yarra, which is like a fashion district of Melbourne, I suppose. In the same building was a fashion company, an international fashion company. They work with some of the biggest brands in Australia, like Sass & Bites, C. Foley, etc. I was single in my late 20s. Believe it or not, I had blonde hair and blue eyes back then as well. And I was, used to go gym, that usual solarium.
Middle-aged spread, I know all about it.
Yeah, pretty much. And the clientele that went into the fashion company was very different to the clientele at a boutique high-end law firm that represented a few people in a BRW Rich 100, so like private clients that did all their work, which was great one-on-one interaction with these people and these entrepreneurs. But being single and seeing the type of work that went on downstairs in the fashion company, somehow Friday night drinks turned into a job offer. And I left law and I joined them as initially their legal counsel, but I became a general manager for that company. It was a brilliant gig, traveled the world, fashion events, Sydney almost every week. But throughout it, I realized it wasn't for me. It didn't satisfy my why. And I realized what law did for me, in addition to financing, and it pays well, was we help people. We genuinely help people. When people come to us for business or in their personal lives, they're going through something or they're expanding something, and that one-on-one interaction with them, you get close to them, you help them through it, and there's honestly nothing more rewarding. So that's how MA Legal was born.
Right. I was going to ask how you started out. What year did you start, and how old were you?
I was 29 and it was 14 years ago.
Yep. So what's that? 2007.
Yeah, 2007.
Great time to start a business.
Global. The financial crisis. Look, I think if you do the right thing and if you're honest to your clients and you're vulnerable and you don't take advantage, you'll always do well. If you care, it shows, and your clients will always, if you build that bond with them, they're not clients, they become friends.
Yeah, I've been in small business now 22 years.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Well, commiserations some days, but I've had 26 business partners across 13 businesses in 3 countries. So I've worked with a shit ton of lawyers, solicitors, and it's obviously professionals like accountants as well. So I really do notice those, and it doesn't take long to pick up those people that actually care about not just the work they're doing, but the people they're there for and to actually help, and they're genuine. So and thankfully now we've got a good cadre of professionals that we rely on, but it takes a lot to get through some of the shit ones to get to the great ones.
Yeah, and it should always be about the client. It really should be about the client. And they're the ones that last the longest, when it's always about the client, not about their own selfish needs or the situation. Yeah.
And so maybe tell the audience a bit about some of your other businesses you've been involved in and owned.
Yeah, so I've been involved in multiple businesses and I still am, I suppose. So I've got a mortgage fund. We do private lending. I'm starting a management consulting business. I've done a fair bit of property development, I've had interests in other businesses. So being a lawyer and a commercial lawyer, and when you grow really close with your clients, they often ask you to get involved in their businesses. And it's not about a free ride. I contribute my fair share of funds, etc., and I help throughout it. And some of these have turned out to be really good, and we've sold out or ventured out or merged or something like that. And some have not worked out so well, and we've counted our losses and walked away.
Yep. Yeah, great. And back to management consulting, is there any area you want to focus on?
I think it is. I think it works really well with law, with what I do anyway. And the management consulting firm that I've worked with, it was their idea to join forces. So it's something that's going to happen in next year, January next year. It will be launched, and we're still working on the name, but they want to use, I suppose, my existing MA branding and their current branding, kind of merge the two together.
Yep, great. And back on MA law, so is there any particular areas of law that you focus on?
I've got a team of over 20 lawyers here, and it's broad. So we do personal. We want to help clients in all aspects of their life. So we've got a business department that helps some ASX-listed companies with all their acquisitions. We've also helped small businesses, partnership agreements, and all those things in between. Then we've got litigation. If something goes wrong, we have a litigation team. I personally like the litigation department. I was in a mediation from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. last night.
Wow.
And we settled. I think the court work becomes fun because it's boistering and flexing and doing that kind of the stuff you see in movies. We've also got a property department and a family law department.
Yeah, great. And you have some key numbers that illustrate the growth. You're about 20 full-time equivalents now. How many started out M&A? Me,
myself, and I. I had a partner. I had the M. I'm the A.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he's a lovely guy and we're still friends. But he had a family. It's a big leap to move out on your own. So I initially moved out and started the firm, and he was going to join me, but he got a job offer a large telco company to become their legal counsel, and took that it was a small payout for at the time, and it's been just myself and I since. I've tried partnerships. I've acquired a few firms. I love to find the right partner as well. Unfortunately, to date, hasn't worked out so well. Not that it hasn't worked out. It's always been nice and amicable. Just my drive and I suppose my work ethics hasn't matched the partners I've found in the past, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you have any other key numbers that illustrate the growth? So 1 to 20 full-time equivalents in the last 14 years. Any other numbers you can share?
The revenue has gone from zero to multi-millions just on the firm. The mortgage fund's got probably $100 million in it.
Right.
So all the development company was doing probably 100 developments at one stage. I've kind of diminished that down. I'm just selling off stuff. I haven't looked into doing new developments with all the prices at the moment. They haven't been feasible to acquire new properties.
Great time to offload all your properties, though.
Pretty much, yeah. It is. It has been.
Yeah. Back to the mortgage fund. So when did you launch that business?
Launched it a bit on and off, I suppose. Initially, it wasn't so much a business, but more assisting clients. I've got a lot of developer clients who needed money, and then the banks, when it comes to lending to developers, are pretty stringent on it. Yeah. So we have private clients who also have a lot of money who don't know what to do with it. So putting the two and two together it worked out really well for both sides.
Yeah. When was the moment you felt like you succeeded?
Still waiting for that moment. And it depends on what you define as success.
That's the next question. Yeah.
I don't know. I actually don't know what I would define as success. I think happiness is success. I don't associate with a monetary value or anything like that. Every day is successful for me when I've helped a client. Like last night, and even overnight and this morning, I got messages from my clients for the mediation yesterday. That's success for me. And nothing beats that interaction and that gratitude and that you've generally helped someone through something.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Be consistent. Have a clear message and a clear focus on what your business is. and get the right team around you.
Yep.
I suppose that's more than one key, I suppose.
No, I agree with that, because if you've got a B or a C player or someone that's just not very friendly and they're in a customer facing role, they can really tarnish your brand.
You really can. Like you're as good as your weakest employee or team member.
Yeah. And how did you fund M&A?
I transitioned into M&A legal. I was fortunate enough that with the fashion company, I spoke to the CEO at the time when I made my decision and transitioned across, whereby I took all my annual leave. In Australia, we got 4 weeks of annual leave. So I took 1 day off a week whilst I set it up, 2 days off, and then it was like 3 days, 2 days. And, it was kind of a transition across. They became a client of mine as well. And it worked out well for me. It was strategic. I think in any business, you need to be strategic with your growth in anything you do.
Yeah. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I would.
Yep.
I would. I'd also look at other industries, more online industries and the like as well, because they seem to do quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Very scalable.
And not requiring time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We launched an online training business 18 months ago now. We've got about 300 students in that for people wanting to set up a distillery in Australia, and that's just gone really well.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
My most stressful points have always been around people and team members.
Yeah.
It's so your whole business, especially on a service-based business, is based on your team members and the culture within the team, and it's a living organism by itself that changes with people coming. And as you grow, you get these. You got to grow. You got to get more employees on board, but then to maintain the culture and the right fit for you, it's sometimes very difficult. And you get stuck to the point where sometimes the person's not the right culture, the person's not the right fit, but they're good workers or earners, or that you need them at the time, and it's hard to make a decision to pull off the Band-Aid and work harder for a short time for the longer game. And I haven't done that in the past, but I've learned to do that more and more as I get older. Yeah,
and I totally agree with you there. It's really hard when they are a hard worker, but there's just something not quite a right fit, and they're the really hard ones to pick the right time and go, actually, no, they have to go. As opposed to if clearly they're an arsehole and they're toxic to the team, that's a much easier decision to make.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like the sooner you do it, the culture should be one of the most important things business owners should focus on. But I don't know if they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Or they don't lead by example. In my team, everyone knows I'll do anything in the office, in any of my teams. I sometimes refer to myself as a cleaner. If something goes wrong, I'll just roll up my sleeves and jump in there and try to do my best to help out.
Yep.
I see other business owners that just put their hands up and point fingers and don't want to help. And I don't think that's a good leader.
No, it's not. No. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
People.
Yep.
People. And sometimes myself. When you start a business, I don't think no one's a business owner or an entrepreneur. It's skills you need to learn within yourself and skills you can adapt from. I'm fortunate. I work one-on-one with entrepreneurs and some very successful entrepreneurs. So I see what they do and I try to mimic it in my own personal life. But there's common traits amongst all of them. They're very structured. They've got clear visions. They've got clear strategies in place. And something I try to do myself, implement across my teams and to my clients as well.
What have you enjoyed least about managing fast growth? People,
the workload sometimes, burning out at times, not being available to family and friends and the like. People talk about being a business owner is lovely, you don't work many hours, which is completely not true.
Yes.
You have flexibility, and I'm fortunate I have flexibility, which I implement myself. And I think as a business owner, you need to set the rules. You set the rules. So 2 days a week, I pick up my daughter from school. That doesn't mean I'm working less. It just means I'm taking a few hours off work in the middle of the day to make it up for it at night.
That's right. Time shifting. I do exactly the same thing. Yeah, it's good. What do you love most about growing a small business? Sounds like you're quite passionate about just businesses in general.
I'm very passionate about businesses. I really like, with all my clients, I really want to get into the business, not into the business as a partner, but like find out exactly what their goals are, what their destination is. What I tell often my clients is, I need you to tell me what your destination is so I can help guide you through there. And things like brand protection, or adding value to a business by having the right agreements in place. Like if you've got a distribution business, having the exclusivity in your agreements. If you've got a sales business, having restraints on your employees so they don't go steal all your clients. These things can add a lot of value to any business, and I think any business can increase its value by implementing those things.
And I'm sure you would have seen a lot of this, but I still come across it a lot, some of the work I do, but people that don't even have a shareholders agreement in place or a partnership agreement, and it just is so messy.
It's so messy. And you know what I tell people, it's people don't necessarily have bad intentions. It's a misunderstanding. If you don't have your rule book at the outset, you're going to lead in some misunderstandings. When we go for a partnership agreement or a shareholders agreement, unit holders, depends on the structure, what it is. Effectively, it's a partnership agreement. This is the rule book of the two partners. We go, and it's a 2-hour meeting. We even ask things like, what if one partner goes through a divorce? Can that force a sale? Because an ex-partner may come in and want to audit all the books and etc. So what if one party wants to exit? What if someone comes in and says, I want to buy the whole business? Can a minority partner hold it up?
Drag along, tag along clauses.
Yeah, drag along, tag along. And most people don't even know what a drag along, tag along rights are.
Yep. Very, very important. It would save a lot of headaches in some of my businesses as well.
I've got a really informative 4 or 5 page information brochure. Happy for you to share it across.
Yeah, it'd be great. We'll add that in the show notes. Yeah, thank you. What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Being focused on what I actually want to achieve, and implementing changes into my own mentality to help my business, I suppose. Something I came across a while ago now that I've implemented throughout, and I've tried to do, is that Sigmund Freud pain and pleasure principle, where your body always avoids pain. And if it likes pleasure, but if it's a choice between pleasure and pain, it will avoid pain. And simple examples of, if you like chocolate, if you see it as pleasure, you'll go for it. But if you associate chocolate with pain, as in you're going to put weight on, whatever the case may be, you'll avoid it. And those simple principles can apply to anything. Like if you're going to get up in the morning and do a workout, you don't want to get out of bed. But if you associate the pain of not doing it, you get out of bed and you set your day up right in a routine. It helps with routine and structure, personally, for me anyway.
Well, that leads us kind of to the next question. What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Structure and balance. They need to have structure and balance. A friend of mine always talks about professional sports. You look at a professional athlete or any professional sporting team, all their athletes are very well structured. They don't work 10 hours a day and not eat properly, or eat on the run and have 15 coffees a day, because that's not optimal performance.
Have you been looking at my calendar? That's pretty much my day lately.
But that's not. And how do you perform at an optimal level when you're doing that? Because you're not fueling your body, you're not looking after your mental health, and it can lead. It's not sustainable. If you make some small changes and look at professional athletes, they don't do what a business person does.
No,
but they work at an optimal level. And if more business people adopted their way of doing things and put a bit more structure to their lives, I think you can achieve more.
It's a really interesting insight you've just made there, because I'm still amazed how many business owners let themselves go. They work far too many hours. So not just they're tired and their productivity is less, but that means less time for family and friends and socializing. And they just think hustle and working with brute force is the way to get through it. Whereas, like you said, if you've got the structure and you put your health and your relationships ahead of that, then you're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah. And what you said earlier, it's about time shifting. You can do it. You just got to plan it. If you have a strategy to do it, you can achieve so much more and still have that balanced life. There's, this magical word about having a balanced life. how many people actually live it, especially as a business owner?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially a small business owner.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can.
Yeah.
I think you need to structure, you need to plan those things out ahead of time, or it won't happen.
And like this question asked, and build that habit and make sure you're disciplined about it.
Yeah.
Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course and add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
I've had a lot of people in my teams, and being in the legal fraternity, it can, it's a very skill-based profession, I suppose. And if you don't have the right skills, as nice as you may be, you don't last long.
Yes.
So I've gone through periods where I've got rid of employees within a week, new employees within a week. They interview great, they say the right things, but within a week you realize you're not going to make it here. And others, they've got the right attitude, and you can teach them.
Yeah.
So I feel like, for me anyway, nowadays, it's a real fine balance between having the right skill set and attitude. And I take attitude over skill set because I feel like skills can be taught. People's attitude cannot be changed.
Totally agree. And there's two things I talk about with some of the businesses I work with when we're talking recruitment. I look for two things, attitude and aptitude, because, like you just said about attitude, but if their aptitude's there, if they're smart enough, they may not have the domain of experience that you're working at the moment, but if they're smart, they'll pick it up.
How do you pick that up? How do you gauge that?
The aptitude.
Yeah.
Things. Well, what I tend to recommend when it comes to recruiting is, because I think a lot of small business owners go short in this area. They just think it's another thing they got to do. They suffer warm body syndrome. I just need someone in the seat. I don't care. Let's just, we've been searching for 2 or 3 months. Let's just put someone in there. And as you would have experienced, you pay for it. You got a B or a C player, and the chasm between a B and an A player is massive. And so in recruitment, one of the first things I recommend is just go write it all out, put a solid procedure together. It starts with obviously a really good job description first. What is this role actually doing? Job ad is then different to that. But really importantly, I think, is the 80-20 rule, Pareto, getting the interviewee talking 80% of the time, and the panel shutting up as much as possible, because the more you get them talking, the better your gut is the more data your gut's going to have to be able to make a decision on that person. The other good thing I've heard and done before is give people a project. So ask them to write something up. So programmers, for example, is quite an easy one, but even in law, I'm sure you could say, here, write this project up. I've heard in the technical space, a lot of tech companies that I've had on the cast use this, and I was floored with some of the numbers. That like 40% wouldn't even meet the deadline, wouldn't even return in the assignment or the project, and then 30% would miss the deadline, so they're all out straight away. And then you start to see the quality of someone's work and assess that, etc. So just really take your time and put a lot of gates, a lot of different interview stages through, starting with a phone screen. So really bulk out your procedure with recruitment and spend as much time around each candidate as you can before you can make that informed decision.
That's really informative, Troy. Thank you. I'm going to try to implement that as we continue to grow.
Yeah, no worries. What are some things you'd recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Lead by example to start with. Culture, I think, comes from the top and goes down and circles around.
Yep.
I had a guest on one of my shows that I'm a co-host on who said that. Sorry, it's not my words. I'm using his. He's written a #1 book for culture in the workplace. But it's true. Like if you lead by example, and it'll go through your management team, and it goes down and then it circles back up again. And you've got to maintain it. You can't just. It's not a sit and forget. It's a living, breathing thing.
Yep, absolutely. We might, you want to mention Real Estate Renovators? We'll link through to that in the show notes. You've been a co-host in that for a bit over 2 years now?
Yeah, we have. So it was a project that started from lockdown. A bunch of friends so I'm a judge, and I've been a judge for probably 4 years for Real Estate Business Awards, which is a national the national awards for real estate agents across Australia.
Right.
And a fellow co-host, a fellow judge and I started talking about working together. And then we came up with this show, the Real Estate Renovators, which is a business advisory show for real estate professionals. And we've had some great guests, as I was mentioning to you earlier, like a couple of weeks ago, we had the guy from realestate.com, the Simon Baker, who was behind the growth of realestate.com.au. Mm-hmm. This week we had Jacob, who wrote a #1 best-selling book on culture in the workplace. We're funded. The major sponsor for the show is an ASX-listed company, PropTech, who've got a market share in the real estate space. So we've got some great guests in the real estate, in and outside the real estate industry, and we get involved with them and find out how they do things and try to give advice to our clients, or not our clients, our viewers.
We'll link through to that in the show notes for sure. Now, you've touched on this already, but this whole chestnut of how have you handled balance?
I have failed in balance multiple times. I think unfortunately, my work has led to 2 divorces in my time. Still good friends with.
I've got one under my belt.
Okay. Yeah. They're not pretty. They're not good to go through divorces. Look, I had brilliant ex-wives, and I'm still good friends with both my ex-wives. So it's not against them. It's probably more me. I didn't balance my life enough. So I've learned from mistakes to schedule these times in. So I've got a new partner who's lovely. We've got scheduled dates, scheduled workouts, schedule everything, because if it's not in my calendar, it fills up so quickly.
Yeah.
And even with my daughter now, so I have 2 days a week, I pick her up from school. And I spend the entire afternoon with her, and then I make up the time elsewhere. So it's about that time shifting and making sure it's in your diary, because personally my diary fills up. So, and if it fills up, it's too hard to cancel things to make a dinner or something like that.
Yep. And how much professional development have you invested in yourself? Obviously a lot, because with law, but I guess outside of that, anything on the business side, have you done much professional development?
Haven't that much, unfortunately. I'd like to do a lot more. I'm a bit time poor, and it's no excuse. I think devoting time on yourself is probably you're the most valuable asset you have. I know you should devote time, but I haven't devoted much to my personal professional development. I listen to podcasts. I don't read many books, because I'm always reading for work. Unless I go away on holidays, then I read. But for work, I do a lot of professional development for work to upskill myself.
Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
I haven't. Who I use is not mentors or coaches per se, but clients, I suppose. I've got some really successful entrepreneurial clients who've done really well in their niches, and I see what they do. And because I'm so involved in their businesses, I can see what has worked and hasn't worked for them. And as I said, I try and mimic that myself. Yeah, great.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I don't. I've sat on multiple boards and directors and advisors, and still do. And even charity boards and the like. But I personally don't have one, no.
Yep. All right, Rex, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
People. Finding the right people.
Yep. Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Don't read that much, but How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yep. Stephen Covey? Yep. Great one. A classic.
Yeah, it's a classic. It shows how long, when was the last time I read a book?
Right. Yeah. What was that? Late 70s or 80s he wrote that, I think.
80s, I think. It was like...
I actually had the privilege of seeing him speak in London. I know he passed away a few years ago, but it was probably 14 years ago he spoke in London. It was amazing.
Good book.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Can I plug my own podcast or my own show? Real Estate Renovators. It's a pretty good podcast or show. But apart from that, Joe Rogan. I've listened to a lot of Joe Rogan.
How can you? I've been tempted, but they're like 2 hours long, aren't they?
They are. They're very long, unfortunately.
And even Tim Ferriss, I think he's over an hour usually. I listen to a couple of his, and then it's just like, oh man, I've got so many others that I want to get to that are short and sharp. So, yeah. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Be strategic. Be very strategic. Have a clear goal and revisit that goal as frequently as possible, so you stay in the direction you need to go to.
Yep. Finally, my favorite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Balance your life better.
Yep. I think I'd say the same thing to myself. Yeah.
I think most business people would look back and say that. And it's not hard to do.
No, it's not. But it is, as I've said a few times in this cast, it's a double-edged sword because we love what we do. I could easily work 80 or, I used to work 100 hours.
Easily, yeah.
But
if you, from what works for me is it's in my calendar.
Yeah.
So the balanced life is embedded into my calendar. So I have a balanced life because my calendar is scheduled that way.
Yep. Yeah, great advice. Thanks, Rex, for your time today. I think the audience got a lot of value out of it. And phenomenal growth over the last 14 years, just for MA Law, your main business. That's 1 to 20 full-time equivalents, and doing great things.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you for having me on your show.
No worries.
And for our audience, we would greatly appreciate a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. More reviews means we bubble up higher in iTunes, etc. So more business owners looking for podcasts to help with their growth will find us.